Hey everyone, Mark here at Discover Your Home. Thank you again for joining me tonight. I get asked on occasion, do you spray exterior homes? And
Sounds good.
my answer generally is no. Um, and there's a number of reasons. So let's address those items that I think, especially for a novice, for a do-it-yourselfer, somebody that's looking to do the work themselves. I've seen guys do it. I don't begrudge the professional that does it. That's their business, absolutely. I'm a little old school in that respect, but I think the things that we've run across that have been challenges have been some of the things that, when it's not done properly, things can fail. And I just looked at a house very recently that was sprayed and it wasn't prepped properly, and there were some things that weren't done. So let's get into that, and then we can kind of talk about the do's and don'ts, the goods and the bads, and all that about spraying the exterior of your home, whether it's a stain or a paint. Generally, I find that when the proper technique that we've learned in the business when applying coatings on exterior buildings, especially like rough sawn cedar. This is probably mostly geared to rough sawn cedar, not so much aluminum siding, but a lot of companies will spray rough sawn cedar, and it's okay if you spray it, but you got to make sure you back roll or back brush it so you work it into the wood as opposed to just laying it on. And that's where you'll get into trouble. If you just, that's the first challenge you'll run into, is if you spray it on, it'll look great, okay, but what's going to happen is there's little air pockets in there, because since a piece of rough sawn cedar is not smooth, there's a lot of air pockets in between the fibers of when that board is made. It's designed to be made to have a rough exterior look to it. So if you do not apply it evenly and you don't get it really worked in, it'll sit on top and have a greater tendency to peel in can be a very short period of time. This project I looked at last week was done a little over a year ago, and it is failing measurably would be a good word. So that's number one. Number two, if you don't mask things off correctly around your home, possibly the roof, covering the roof, covering fireplaces, anywhere that what'll happen is wind will catch that overspray and whip around, carry it over around the house and get on the fireplace. So you have to make sure you are properly covering the things that you don't want stain or paint to be on. Okay, so make sure you do it. Third, windy or non-windy days. Okay, if it's a breezy day out, you sometimes, depending upon where you're located at, it's not too bad. Your windy day, forget about it. You'll have paint all over the neighborhood. You won't even realize it. Okay. Fourth is really, have you selected the correct tip? When you spray, how much is the paint getting atomized? Is it very humid out? Will it carry? Another, probably the fifth thing is probably looking at that could be a problem is overspray on the neighbor's house, the neighbor's cat, the neighbor's deck, the neighbor's brand new Lexus. So there's a lot of things that can happen where you haven't really planned for. And if you like your neighbors, I would just highly recommend you stick with the old brush and roller and get up there. And it's a little elbow grease and some times away, a little time away from watching the baseball game over the weekend. So that's why I would highly recommend doing by brush and roll. Not saying you can't. I'm just saying you might want to reconsider, because if you don't have the skill set, if you're not used to operating a sprayer, you're going to find that it sounds good in theory, but there's a lot of headaches that come with it. And running a airless spray pump, I know even guys that are in line of work that do it, sometimes it's just they get frustrated because the pumps aren't clean. If you go and rent one, you probably won't buy one, but you'll probably rent one. They're not cleaned very well. Usually they jam up on you, they're clogged up, and if they weren't cleaned and brought back in proper condition, you can have a problem, and that starts your project off just kind of in a kind of a bad place. So you know, you want to make sure when you're applying your stain. I find that with a brush and roller, you're going to apply it a little bit more evenly. I always recommend using especially on rough sawn cedar, use a thicker nap roller, like a 3/4 to an inch nap roller. Keep it real fluffy. Put a lot of material on. Back brush it all down. Put on a nice thick coating. Put 2 coats on, and I'd say generally, depending upon color, between 6 and 10 years. Usually 8 is really the sweet spot of when you're going to have to redo it. So this is just little bits of information, hopefully to help you when the time comes. You just bought that new home and you've never had a cedar sided home, and this is a great way to go about doing it. I find that it does take more labor. Whether it's you or professional, when you're doing something by hand or versus a sprayer, it does take longer. So it probably, if you're hiring a professional, will cost you a little bit more to be done by brush and roller. If you do hire a professional and they do a spray application, just make sure in their proposal to you that they talk about back brushing, back rolling. Maybe to just dip out there, take a look, make sure the guys are, they're doing what they say they're doing. And then honestly, if that's the case and they're doing a great job, you got the right guys and the right team to do your project. If you're doing it, there again, make sure you don't cheat. You put it on with the spray, you put it on with your airless gun, and make sure you back brush and back roll if you're comfortable and confident with it. But there again, it does take required skill in years of service and spraying to really kind of to master what you're doing. Drop cloths everywhere. Cover everything, just makes your job a little bit easier, and just make sure you do a nice neat job and clean up in the end. So hopefully this is kind of a little guide for you if you decide you're going to tackle that project outside. Some things to concern yourself with, some things to think about, and hopefully I'll possibly in the back of your mind telling you to do A or B. So if you have any questions, reach out to us on Market Discover Your Home. Thanks again for joining me. Have a great week.